It was my first weekend after moving into the neighborhood, and I spent the morning unpacking boxes on my front porch. The street was quiet. Children rode bicycles nearby, and neighbors waved as they walked past. I thought it would be the perfect place to start a new chapter in my life. I had no idea one neighbor had already decided I didn't belong. Across the street, Linda Parker watched me through her front window with crossed arms. Within minutes, she walked outside, carried her phone, and began taking pictures of my house. Several neighbors noticed, but quietly continued their afternoon. It was the beginning of a pattern no one wanted to confront. Later that evening, a patrol car slowly pulled up in front of my home. Two officers politely explained they had received a complaint about suspicious activity. I smiled, introduced myself, and answered every question without hesitation. After a quick conversation, the officers wished me a good evening and drove away. The next morning, another patrol car arrived after someone reported loud disturbances. The officers quickly realized the neighborhood was completely peaceful. Children played outside while birds chirped through the trees. Once again, the complaint turned out to be completely unfounded. Over the next several weeks, the same pattern continued again and again. Every complaint described a different problem that simply didn't exist. The responding officers always remained professional and respectful. Even they began noticing the unusual number of repeated calls. Instead of becoming frustrated, I kept careful notes after every visit. I documented dates, times, and the reason officers had been dispatched. Remaining calm was always easier than arguing. Soon, the pattern became impossible to ignore. One afternoon, Officer Ryan quietly apologized for interrupting my weekend once again. He admitted the repeated calls all came from the same address, although he couldn't discuss every detail. He encouraged me to remain patient. I thanked him and appreciated his professionalism. A month later, the city officially announced its newly appointed police chief. Very few people in the neighborhood had seen the announcement. Most residents had no idea who had accepted the position. Linda certainly wasn't paying attention. That same afternoon, another call brought officers back to my home. Linda insisted I was creating problems throughout the neighborhood. The officers calmly listened before knocking on my front door once again. They already suspected how the conversation would end. After listening to both sides, Officer Ryan respectfully asked Linda to remain where she was. He walked over to me with a warm smile before quietly saying congratulations. Several neighbors looked confused by the unexpected exchange. Linda stared in complete disbelief. Officer Ryan turned toward the crowd and formally addressed me as Chief Reed. The street fell completely silent. Linda looked from the officers to me, trying to understand what she had just heard. Her confidence disappeared almost instantly. The officers explained that every complaint had been investigated professionally. Each report had ended the same way, with no evidence supporting the allegations. Several neighbors quietly admitted they had never witnessed any problems. The truth was becoming clear to everyone. I thanked the officers for handling every situation with patience and respect. They had treated each call seriously without jumping to conclusions. That professionalism protected everyone involved. It was exactly how public service should work. Several neighbors stepped forward and introduced themselves for the first time. They apologized for never questioning the repeated rumors. I told them everyone deserves a chance to know their neighbors before making assumptions. The atmosphere immediately became more welcoming. Linda quietly admitted that she had acted too quickly without getting to know me. She apologized for the repeated misunderstandings. I accepted her apology and hoped the neighborhood could move forward together. Respect always begins with a conversation. Over the following weeks, the neighborhood slowly changed. Residents spent more time talking with one another instead of relying on assumptions. Community gatherings became more welcoming than ever before. Trust replaced unnecessary suspicion. Marcus continued serving the city with the same quiet professionalism he had always shown. His neighbors came to appreciate the example he set every day. Leadership wasn't about titles. It was about character. Months later, the neighborhood hosted its annual community picnic. Families laughed together while children played across the park. Marcus and Linda shared a brief, friendly conversation. The past had become a lesson instead of a lasting division. Looking back, I realized patience had accomplished far more than anger ever could. Every difficult moment had become an opportunity to build understanding. Sometimes the strongest response is simply remaining calm. People eventually noticed the truth for themselves. The neighborhood had become exactly what I hoped it would be, a place where people knew one another instead of assuming the worst. Real communities are built through respect, honesty, and everyday kindness. Those values will always matter more than rumors. And that's the kind of neighborhood worth calling home.